So let me share my screen and then we will crack on. Okay, let's go back. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. It's nice to see so many people today, which is awesome. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Emma Keeling. I've been leading this group now for more than a year. So we meet about once a quarter. We do it all virtually, so we can have people from all over the world, which is amazing. Particularly for those who, you know, I'm based in literally the Midlands, so I'm between Derby and Nottingham in the UK, and I really don't want to have to be going down to London for non-profit events. So yeah, it's great, and it also means we can have great guest speakers. So we've got James, who is from Australia. So James is, you know, got to have a coffee in the middle of this, and James is going to talk to us and do a demo of the MoveData product. So as you know, we've just been talking about t-shirts. I just want to be really clear. I've not been endorsed. I've not been paid. I've not nothing. But MoveData has come up on our coffee chats. So we started in the summer. They're now bi-weekly coffee chats. I say bi-weekly-ish, but we've got another one tomorrow, which if anyone wants the link, I can post that. But we just kind of get together as a group of non-profit professionals, I guess, to talk about different challenges. We've had so many conversations on those discussions about, you know, form products, or, you know, I've got this problem. Anyone have any idea how to solve it? We've also had talks where we just talk about cats, dogs, anything else we can think of. But one of the products that came up quite early on was MoveData. Debbie, who's here, was talking about it. Yvonne, not this Yvonne, Yvonne who used to be at Firefighters, came and was talking about it, and just think it's a really cool product. So I wanted us to, you know, get James here, do a demo, and give people the chance to chat to him about it. And then going with that, we've got Barbara, who's based in the US. She'll tell you a bit more about herself in a minute, but she's Salesforce MVP, knows so much about NPSP. I just think Barbara is such a rock star, and I don't think Barbara knows how much of a rock star she really is. So, you know, she'll be all like, oh no, not really, but she's amazing. And one of the things we were really asked for in this group was we were asked for, when I sort of looked back at like, what did people want? What people wanted was, you know, talk about NPSP. And let's say that not the basics of NPSP, but kind of like maybe next level, and then things maybe you don't know about NPSP. And I thought, you know, nothing better than getting Barbara here to talk about NPSP. And also maybe from that, if we get ideas that we might want to talk about certain areas more, we could, you know, let me know if you've got ideas or things you want to hear about, and we'll try and find a speaker. It doesn't necessarily have to be Barbara, unless Barbara wants to come back, which she's always welcome. But, you know, we can find people to talk about those topics as well. So I am now going to be quiet. Oh, just say at the end, we will have duck race, virtual duck race. We've got swag on offer. I would normally be throwing swag around the screen, but I left it at home. So it's going to be mystery swag for the first and second prize, but it will be some sort of plushie, some sort of, you know, notepad, something. There'll be stuff. And then I also have some t-shirts. So third and fourth place will also get some t-shirts. Unfortunately, only open to those in the UK, simply due to postal costs. So I will be messaging probably most of you just to ask if you're based in the UK or not. So if anybody wants to put in the chat now, if they are in the UK, I'm sorry, Mel, don't look sad. But if you're based in the UK, or you're not based in the UK, if you can stick it in chat, that I will save me a job, because I will be adminning as we go. So now I'm going to stop talking, and I am not going to stop talking because I'm just going to confirm the agenda. So we've got James up first. James is going to talk for about half an hour. Then we've got Barbara. Then we've got breakouts. So we'll have a breakout for MoveData. We'll have a breakout for NPSP. So you can go and grill James and Barbara. We may drop those times down a little bit just to keep us on track. And then we will jump into the duck race. We expect to be done about 2:15. So I am going to make sure that James has the ability to share. Over to you, James.
Terrific. Thank you for having me, Emma, and thanks everyone for giving up your precious time to join this call. Can everyone see my screen, first of all?
Yes.
Cool, terrific. So here to talk to you about MoveData. What do we do? If you look at this little diagram on the website, you can see sort of information coming in from different platforms. MoveData is handling it and pushing it into Salesforce. So what we do is we have a product which specializes in Salesforce integration for nonprofits, and we're really quite simple at the end of the day. We're listening to these platforms like JustGiving, Enthuse, Raisely, and others, and sort of making sure you can get that information into Salesforce automatically. So the idea is to really free up a lot of time that you would otherwise be spent doing data entry, and automate that so you can focus on, you know, more important tasks. So rather than sort of talking a lot, I'll just sort of jump straight into a demo. Now with MoveData, you can install it from the Salesforce App Exchange. You can also book a meeting on our website, come through the process of setting you up in a sandbox and sort of fine-tuning everything for you. But basically in this sandbox, I'm just on this integrations tab of the app, and you can see there's a number of integrations installed. So I've got a JustGiving account wired up. I've got an Enthuse account wired up, and I've also got a Raisely account wired up. Most of you are using JustGiving, Enthuse, maybe Facebook, PayPal Giving Fund. They're quite popular in the UK. There's a number of platforms we support. And what you can do is you can click this button, New Integration. And up will pop basically a screen where you can enter some information to connect your platform into Salesforce. So on this one, I think I'm zoomed in a little bit for this call, but on this one, it's Enthuse. There's some information that you can get from Enthuse. You can see here it's asking for your client ID, your client secret, and your API key. Basically, once you add that information in, we're going to be able to receive updates from Enthuse and push them into Salesforce. Similar thing for JustGiving. I think that's username and password. Other platforms, they might require different things. So as long as you can get this information from Enthuse, you can plug it in. Enthuse will be connected into Salesforce. So with just a note on JustGiving and Enthuse, they actually both don't have real-time APIs. I'm going to show you what they look like in here, but I'm also going to demo on a platform called Raisely because its API is real-time. So what I might just do to start is got this Enthuse donation form up. I'm just going to make a £10 donation, and then maybe towards the end of the demo, hopefully it processes within that time, and we can sort of see it push through into Salesforce. So if you just bear with me, I will make a donation. So, you know, this is what your donors will be doing, going through these kinds of forms, entering their details. And add some gift aid. So it's a £10 donation with $2.50 of gift aid. This is just a test account for Enthuse. So I'll just get that in now, knowing that hopefully towards the end of the demo, that'll come through from Enthuse and you can see what it looks like in Salesforce. Okay, cool. So in terms of the live demo, this is just Raisely. The reason to show it to you is that it's a real-time API. So I can show everything right now. So basically what I've got is I've got a fundraising profile. So fundraiser page. They're in this Midlands nonprofit user group. That's a team that I've created. This is Raisely, by the way. And it's in this campaign, which is called MoveData campaign. So this could be like a community fundraising example. This could be like a peer-to-peer event kind of an example. I'm sure many of you, use this process for your fundraising. I'll just make a $100 donation. You'll have to forgive dollars, pounds, and switching back and forth, yours will all be pounds. So again, if I just type in some information, phone numbers and address, and make my donation, all the data entry will be out of the way. We'll have everything we need for our examples. And because these platforms are all connected to Salesforce, this data will all pipe through. So we've made our donation, and then open the MoveData up. I'm now on this notifications tab. Basically, this is all the information that's being piped in from these different platforms. Keeping in mind, we've got Enthuse, we've got Razely, we've got JustGiving connected in. You can see it's currently executing. So let me open this up, and you'll start to see what MoveData does by default. Let's give this 5 seconds or so while it runs in. So it's the nature of a real-time demo. You have to wait for things to complete. And keeping this more business-oriented than tech, you can see that a number of records are produced automatically, right? And I'll come back to Enthuse and JustGiving in a minute. You've got like a contact here, Razely Midlands. This is the donor, the person who just made that donation. You've got an opportunity record here, $100 donation. So that's how that's represented inside Salesforce. Got a number of campaign records, which is our take on sort of fundraising pages. So you've got this James fundraising page and this Midlands nonprofit user group team in this MoveData campaign. And then you've got another contact. This is the fundraiser contact who's behind these pages, which I sort of created in advance. So just to give you a little tour of what you can sort of turn MoveData on and it'll build by default. We can look into this contact record. If I click on details, like all the information that you'd expect would just come through and into Salesforce. So first name, last name, email, phone numbers, addresses, all this type of stuff. I'll show you how it gets customized in a minute as well. So some people might have a checkbox on their record. Everyone customizes Salesforce, right? So someone might have a checkbox on their record, is regular giver or something. So if they've made a regular gift, make sure you set is regular giver to true. But fundamentally, this is the type of information that gets built out on contacts. Uses a number of criteria to work out if this person already exists inside Salesforce, chief being the Salesforce duplicate rules. So a lot of people have fuzzy match on first name, exact match on last name, exact match on email. So we use the Salesforce duplicate rules to work out if this person exists. And if so, let's append this opportunity to their record. If not, let's create a new contact for them. And you can imagine what type of information goes on the opportunity record. You've got, person, amount, dates, messages that they wrote in, fee information, receipt numbers, do soft crediting as well. So for all of your fundraisers who are sort of raising these funds, you can start reporting on people via their soft credit totals. Give me all the people who have soft credit totals of over, £500 over the last 12 months. I want to create a list and sort of target them for an event. So this is your opportunity record. And if I click into the campaign, so this is the campaign through which the donation was derived. So person behind the page, page URL, page description, fundraising target, Salesforce obviously automatically adds up all of their opportunities. So you can see how if this information is coming into Salesforce automatically and in real time, you might configure some marketing around this, or at the very least some reports to sort of say, right, James has created a new page. Let's create a task so someone can give them a call. Or James hit their fundraising target. Let's dispatch an email to them. Or, hey, James has created a page, but hasn't had a donation in like 3 days. Let's send him an SMS. You can see how that's sort of all made available for you if the data is coming into Salesforce quickly. Now, James is parented by the Midlands nonprofit user group. And the Midlands nonprofit user group is parented by this MoveData campaign. So in terms of a campaign hierarchy, probably less important for appeals and things, but you can see how you get your campaigns, your teams, your fundraisers, and sort of how all this information then sort of rolls up through that hierarchy. So it's a nice little take on sort of, how to represent peer-to-peer fundraising inside Salesforce. Though I'm running through this really quickly, the other thing I'll show you is just in terms of campaign members, you've got donors, 7 donors, 1 team leader, 1 fundraiser. This is a feature that can be turned on or off. And you can sort of say, right, well, in the context of this campaign, Razely Midlands is a donor, whereas James Gilray is a team leader. So you can sort of start differentiating people via the context through which they've engaged with you in this campaign. Obviously, your communications to fundraisers and team leaders can be very different to donors. So nice little feature which kind of helps do that for you. But jump into JustGiving. This is just an example from PSPA, which has been anonymized for the purpose of this demo. There's a fundraising page, and you can see this one. It's just blanked out as XXX. It's just the example I'm going to show you. So this is the donation that came through on JustGiving. As you'd be aware, JustGiving sends fundraising pages, donation reports, payment reports, gift aid reports, these kinds of things. And it's a bit too far zoomed in. From an output perspective, same as Enthuse, it kind of produces the same thing in Salesforce. So we've got that £58. Ignore the fact that this one has $1 in front of it. Donation made inside JustGiving, and that's reflected the same way inside Salesforce as the previous example that we went through, where it's drive through London Marathon, so and so's page. It's got so and so contact behind it. It's a £58. It's got this, I think this is the donation ref from JustGiving, which is wired up to this field. But I think you kind of get the picture. It's listening to these APIs whenever any information comes through from these platforms. It's running through a series of rules to create contacts, accounts, campaigns, opportunities, recurring donations, campaign members, all these kinds of things inside Salesforce. What's quite cool is, from a Salesforce administrator perspective, is the way that a lot of this stuff gets, the way that all this stuff gets mapped into Salesforce is via Salesforce flows. So when you install MoveData, like a number of managed flows get pushed in, which cover off essentially all the stuff I just showed you. What you can do is create these extension flows to sort of house your own unique business logic. So no two Salesforce accounts are ever the same. Everyone's going to have different custom fields or custom objects or unique business logic or third-party apps that need to be respected in some way. So it's important that this is not a one-size-fits-all integration. It should sort of get you 95% of the way there out of the box, but it should then be tunable to do exactly what you need. So if you're familiar with flows, basically in this example, you can see that there's a field here for the gift aid reference and the gift aid payment date, which are currently blank. And just to do a little example with you, again, if you're familiar with flows, and probably get into too much technical detail, you'll have questions, but I'll just cover the sort of highlights. Basically, MoveData makes available all these different fields, information from JustGiving available for you to use when this information is being written into Salesforce. So you can see here, hopefully that's not too small, but there's a value of 3010762 for the gift aid payment reference. And there's also a value for the date that the gift aid was paid on. So if I want to set these two fields, gift aid reference and gift aid payment date, I can use these values. So I've got this flow here. There's a little bit of stuff going on. You can see I've got a question here. What's the platform? Is it Razorly? Is it JustGiving? Is it Enthuse? If it's Enthuse, I want to set the field lead source to Enthuse. Now, in terms of supporting those other requirements, I've got this question here to work out if there's any gift aid present. And what I can do is I can just remember what fields I'm trying to set, the gift aid reference and the gift aid payment date. So what I can do is I can say, all right, is gift aid reference present? Yes or no? So for yes, there's this variable, gift aid payment reference, right? So if I copy that and add a new resource, again, there's a lot more background, but not enough time to cover. So I make gift aid payment reference a variable available for input so the flow can use it. So I'll say if gift aid payment reference exists, if there's a value for that, then I want to set gift aid payment reference. So I can get my opportunity record, gift aid reference equals that variable that we just added. So if that value exists, I want to always use that value and set on that gift aid reference field. Similarly, I can go just make another decision off this. I'll go is gift aid date present. Yes. Just make this a little bit dodgy. Yes _2. So I can add my variable again, payment date, new resource. The point I'm trying to convey here is that this is date time. The point I'm trying to convey here is that it's really simple to customize and tweak and extend your integration and manage it so that it's an exact fit for you and that you can quickly and easily evolve it as you make changes to Salesforce over time. Set gift aid reference date record dot gift aid payment date equals the gift aid payment date. So I can save this flow, hit activate. And if I come back to the JustGiving notification, I can click reprocess, and hopefully I haven't made an error when I've done that live in the demo. But as this goes through, it's now going to run this new logic, which we just added inside this flow. And if I haven't made a mistake, it's going to set these two fields with those values. So this is currently running in. Really hope I haven't made a little mistake. It says success, so it should be good. And if I refresh this record, you can see we've got our gift aid reference and our gift aid payment date. So if you think of MoveData as this thing which will sort of get Enthuse, JustGiving, whatever it is that you're using into Salesforce automatically, it'll build records according to sort of NPSP convention. You can then fine tune it very easily, as you just saw then using flows, to add additional logic to the integration and to sort of, really fine tune it so that it's an exact fit for your organization. At least that was the point I was trying to make in that. Let me hit refresh on Enthuse. Just see if it came through yet. Yeah, cool. So you can see that this is wired up to the Enthuse API. I won't go through this one at any great length, but you can see that we did our £10 donation under the name of Midlands test. We've got a contact. This is just a generic donation through the Enthuse checkout form. So it's under this Enthuse campaign. And you've got your opportunity record, which contains all of your Enthuse data. So it looks pretty good. In a nutshell, that's kind of it. It's like as a Salesforce admin, working in the nonprofit space, your organization is going to be using these various tools. You're probably conducting data imports, guessing on a weekly basis is pretty typical, or at least when JustGiving, comes out with the new payment files. Most people are having to manipulate that data in Excel. It's quite time consuming, and then import it through data loader, deal with errors, when something goes wrong in that process. This can automate that. It's removing the manual task. It's doing that programmatically through APIs of these supported platforms. The other thing I'll say and sort of show is what's really important. I think this is the document we did with Debbie, actually. It's got no personal information in it, but it's just good to show. Like, what's always handy is to obviously install in a sandbox first and connect Enthuse or JustGiving or whatever it is up in a sandbox and sort of see what gets produced by default, because everyone's got their own sort of custom way of doing things. You can see here there's a field. And this is something we do, by the way. If you sort of go through the website rather than down the App Exchange path of doing it yourself, is we do an audit of your Enthuse, JustGiving, Raisely, whatever it is account, and also of your Salesforce account, and say, right, you've got this field payment method. We probably need to build these values conditionally. So if the platform's JustGiving, set JustGiving. If the platform's Enthuse, set Enthuse. If the platform's Facebook, set Facebook. There might be other things, different ways that people handle gift aid that needs to be baked in. So regardless of if MoveData does this customization work for you, or if you do it yourself through flows, it's always wise to start in the sandbox, review things, come up with some kind of list. It might just be bullet points of what else does the thing need to do, And then yourself, your Salesforce partner asks, it's quite simple to sort of bake your logic in using flows. So I don't know how I'm going for time, Emma. I feel like I've just like rattled off as much as I can as quickly as possible. But that's kind of what I want to show, just like a quick demo of sort of end to end. What does the tool do? How do you customize it? Little jump into flows. So I might stop sharing there and I don't know, see if anyone has any questions or hand over to Barbara perhaps.
No, we are good. You've got some time for questions. So thank you, James. That was amazing. I've seen the demo before. It never ceases to make me go, wow, this will make some admin's jobs much easier. I think Holly has got a question that she's popped in the chat. Holly, I don't know if you want to come off mute and ask directly, or I can read it out for you.
Hi, yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to be in a queue.
Hey, Holly.
Hi. That was really interesting. Thank you. I was just wondering, we don't use campaigns to group the donations by the fundraiser like you showed in the video. We use tributes. So I was wondering if that would still work. Can we customize for that, or are we limited to certain objects?
You can definitely customize for that, and you're not limited to any object. So in that scenario, basically what would happen is that you, us, whoever it was, would suppress the creation of those campaign records. And if you're using tributes or a custom object or like whatever it is, some people use opportunities instead. You would need to write that logic to sort of say, right, I'm cool with contacts, accounts, recurring gifts, opportunities. That's all great, but for campaigns, I need some custom logic put in. So basically, the campaign stuff would be suppressed. So there's a way to do that in the flows to basically say, hey, don't create campaigns.
Okay.
And then some logic would be written to say, right, instead of campaigns, I want you to use tributes or indeed any custom object. Working on some now where they use opportunities, sort of parent-child opportunities, parent for the fundraiser, child for the donation. So it's like, it doesn't work out of the box like that because it's a more unique way of doing it. But yeah, that logic could be written. Obviously, there's some effort there. Someone's gonna have to write it because it's more unique to you. But yeah, absolutely, it can be included in that integration for sure.
Cool, thank you.
Amazing. Right, so we have a few people who have questions, which is awesome. Thank you, Paul and Jose. Just hold on 1 minute. What I'm just going to say is before we just carry on with any other questions, I don't know, Yvonne and Debbie, I know you've both used MoveData. I don't know if you want to add anything to what James has said, just to give a bit more of a kind of admin perspective.
If Yvonne's using MoveData, Debbie didn't end up using it actually, because I think there was a requirement to create like one opportunity when the payment came through, and it was like we create opportunities for each and every donation. But I think we went live with Warchild maybe, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, like a week and a half ago we went live. It took a while. Hey, it took a while to get there, and that wasn't on you really. That was kind of more on us. So we did the sandbox thing, but we moved it from a dev box through into our full copy sandbox, through into final production, and there was lots of sort of tweaks along the way. Yeah, it's been a really interesting sort of way to look at our integration actually by doing it by flow, and then when we have had to make sort of like a little tweak. So recently we've been looking, for example, at our at payments. So our finance team have been looking to sort of change our how we track our payments. And it's literally just been rather than it going to this payment type, I've been able to go into the flow myself to change the payment type, and then it's also worked perfectly. So it's just knowing which bits you can go in and tweak, it feels familiar. But it's been great in terms of the integration, being able to kind of now have all of that data come through rather than having to upload 2,000 lines of JustGiving data manually. World changing. It's been so honestly it's been really good. So I'm happy to kind of open up to questions in the little break bit. I'll jump into the room with James and sort of from a customer perspective, if there's anything that you want to ask, then happy to kind of help out there too.
And I'll just say we don't store individual lines for every single payment. We just which I didn't sort of look at with my users beforehand, is that they group all the donations by fundraiser and only put in a line per fundraiser. So that's why we ended up not going forward with it.
Brilliant, fantastic. Okay, I'm going to ask Paul and Jose, are you happy, because we've got breakout sessions with James and with Barbara, are you happy to take your questions to the breakout? Paul, go for it, you're on mute.
I want someone to say no. I need to ask it now.
Paul's like, no, I need to ask my question now, but we can't hear Paul. It's okay. Jose, let me know if you're happy to take those to a breakout.
That's fine. Yeah, no, that's fine. I can go to the breakout room.
Amazing, fantastic. And then we'll let Paul play with his permissions. Paul's, uh-oh. So, hold on. I love this. Paul, we'll let Barbara get ready.
I'm ready.
Barbara's always ready. Oh, so Paul, while you deal with your technical, oh, you're going to type. Okay, Paul's going to type.
The internationally recognized symbol for typing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We all love Paul. So, you know, anybody who doesn't know Paul, this is fine. Oh, I love this. John just said, I quietly feel relieved when a golden hoodie type has tech issues. Here we go. Paul, one question. Is the consultancy over the flows included, or how do you work that out? Okay, so cost.
It's a gray area, if I'm honest. So it depends how much customization you have, really. So recognizing that Salesforce integrations, incredibly complex scenarios in nonprofit land around like peer-to-peer fundraising, regular gifts, like it's not the easiest stuff. Like so recognizing that it's not trivial to set up. MoveData provides half a day, so like 4 hours worth of dev services to all new installs to help set up. Now, when we sort of install in a sandbox and go through the review process together, we kind of ascertain to what extent do you need changes. So like if someone needed, hey, it all looks good, I just need some more custom fields added, a few mappings, little bits and pieces over here and there, it's probably going to fit into that 4-hour window. So it'd be included as part of the sort of normal onboarding. On the other hand, to our friend who was using like a different object to reflect the campaigns, it's probably going to be more labor intensive. It'd take more than 4 hours to set that kind of thing up. It might take like, I don't know, a day or a day and a half, for instance. So that'd be above that threshold. I guess the point is we get our ducks in a line in terms of, cool, this is exactly what we need to do. We can then go through it and sort of say, right, that's an hour there, that's 2 hours there, it's an hour here, an hour there, and sort of come up with some kind of number. And let's say it's 10 hours, for instance. It's typically not too long. Like most people would be anywhere from a couple of hours to a couple of days worth of effort to sort of set up. Any more than that, and it is getting like, you know, more and more complex. But yeah, so say yours required, you know, 10 hours to do, 4 hours is provided as part of the normal onboarding. So it'd be like a 6-hour gap, and we'd say, cool, this is what the cost is for 6 hours worth of developer work to configure it for you. Or you could do it yourself, or your Salesforce partner could do it too.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to add, and then I'm going to pass over to Barbara, but just from the conversations I had with James, I got the impression very much that a lot is, and I think we've all seen this, where you're given a list of requirements, and actually, are they all really requirements? You know, when the person in fundraising is saying, you know, I must have this. Like, the great thing I love about it is the fact you can plug it in and do the basics, right? And you can say to fundraising, well, here are your basics. Now, what do you really need? Rather than having to necessarily do it from the start. It's not like a waterfall project, right? It's very agile. So, you know, being able to say to fundraising, okay, so what are the top things you need? And then what can we add? And either it can be done in-house, or like James says, by a consultant, or actually, is it needed? Because how many times are things asked for, nobody ever then looks at the data for?
And I think if you live in like paper, when you're sort of dreaming up all of these scenarios, like there's an opportunity to just spend days and days and days on an Excel spreadsheet or a Word doc, and you just sort of spiral and you just go, if this, if this, if this, and it just keeps building. Like if you get this thing in a sandbox and it's just pumping data through, it's going to be quite quick for you to identify anything core that is missing. I know with Avona was a use case around the categories coming through from JustGiving, which were really important for allocation against particular campaigns and sort of financial codes and other sort of stuff. So that was like one sort of area which was like really cool, which needed to be supported. But if you get it into a sandbox, you'll see how it works by default. It'll be quite obvious, where are the areas that you need to focus on and what other stuff you can kind of let go.
And the final question, Paul's just popped in the chat. He just said, apologies if I missed this. He said, I'm presuming it collects from JustGiving automatically. There's no manual thing you have to do daily, etc.
That's right. Yeah. It's all automatic.
Awesome. I'm hoping I basically, look at Paul's dancing now. I messaged Paul this morning and said, no idea what you're doing today at 12:30 UK, but I think you should come to this and see MoveData. And he messaged back saying, well, let me see if I can move my meeting. I will be there. And I think he's found it beneficial. So that's always a win as well when you actually say to somebody, please come to this. So Barbara, over to you. You can have your 30 minutes. And then we can do 20 minutes for breakouts.
Great. Hey, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, James. Sorry.
Thank you,
My
James.
pleasure. Thank you all.
That was interesting. Thank you so much. I'm going to go play with that a bit. I'm Barbara Christensen. I am an independent consultant in the nonprofit space. I have been working for nonprofits since I was a wee child, so way over 30 years, and have been a consultant for about 9 years. I help manage the what's our new name? Nonprofit Salesforce how-to series videos you may have seen, which is a YouTube channel that gives little quick walkthroughs. So I'm not showing my screen. I will show that to you in a second. Of all the features in NPSP that you or your users might need. And I am a user group leader myself. I do have a user group meeting coming up sort of in a weird time zone. I'll share the link when I'm done talking. That's about it's called the Procrastinator's Guide to 2022 Salesforce Nonprofit Releases. So we're going to get you all caught up on anything you might have missed in 2022 that's of interest to nonprofits. And you are welcome to join. It is also virtual. And I'm an MVP. So today I'm going to talk about NPSP, and I'm going to do it on a little journey through NPSP settings. You do not have to be an NPSP expert to understand what I'm about to show you. If you know a little bit about NPSP, it's probably good because we'll be talking about objects and records and types of things you do in NPSP from the back end, from the settings, but I'm hoping it will be helpful. And I am going to share my screen. One moment. Make sure I share the right screen. Maybe share. You should see, one sec, nonprofit settings. Is that correct? Awesome. Emma, if anyone chats with a need to ask a question, great, or we can save them to the end too. That might be easiest. But if you desperately need to ask, just pipe in. I have a small monitor and a large monitor, so I can't look at your faces while I present. I need my notes because we're going to cover quite a lot. I am going to zoom past the super easy stuff that you can watch one of those how-to videos yourself and learn really quickly. I'm going to dive into some of the things maybe you haven't heard of before or used yet, so that you can learn about some new tricks that will be useful. And I will show of hands or high five in your reactions. How many of you have looked at NPSP settings before and not been scared of it? Okay, good. We're seeing some folks. Good. NPSP settings is what controls everything in NPSP, right? It's how you set up things up. And it's pretty big. As you've probably noticed, it takes a while to load the first time you go to use it. It's got some stuff going on. And so we're just going to cruise through and point some things out. It is divided into people. So what happens between people in the database? Who are the people in our database? Those of us who are from the US might recognize that. Relationships between people, people who give you money, or what happens to donations and recurring donations. And then there's some fun, nitty gritty, nerdy stuff we'll get down here into bulk data and processes. NPSP is all about constituent management. It is about making sure you understand who your people are, how they relate to you and to each other. And this first account model, do not touch it. That is my only thing to say about this is please do not touch this unless you know what you were doing or you have someone who is helping you know what you were doing. This will change how NPSP is structured. Some folks who use vanilla NPSP straight from a trial don't know is that you can change how your households are named. And what I mean by that is this right here. So I have Yvonne, small household. If Yvonne had another person in her household, it would be Yvonne and Sally, small. And it would still say here, the small household. You can imagine the problem there is if you also have the Sarah and Steve small household and you're just looking at the account name, how would you know the difference? Well, NPSP will let you customize your household names. You can actually change the way it's structured. And I'm going to show you really quickly what that looks like. It takes a couple of clicks. Most folks go with the sort of standard first name, last name household. And we are going to save it. And all I've done there is just change the format. I've said first name, last name, household. You can get, and these are merge fields, kind of like you have in a Word merge document when you're trying to merge in data from an Excel spreadsheet. That's what this little curly bracket exclamation point, that's what that's called, is a merge field. And it's just saying use first name, then last name, then household. Pretty easy. You can get complicated. You could change it to family. You could change it to like I'm Ms. Barbara Christensen family, and it uses the primary contact on the household. It uses their name. You can get pretty fancy here. You can also make your own. My recommendation to you is when you choose other, it's going to pull in the last one you had chosen. So if you don't want to have to remember and copy and type these all in yourself, pick the one that's closest to what you're going to do and then change it to other, and it's going to pull up. It'll already be pre-filled with that, just less typing. So, but for our needs, I'm going to change us to first, last household, and I'm going to save it. And a thing to know about NPSP settings, I am going to save it. There you go. A thing to know about NPSP settings is it works from this point forward. So anything edited and a contact made, a household updated from here on forward will have the new structure. But I'm going to show you towards the end how to change everything in your database to meet some of these new rules we're making. So for a demonstration, I'm going to make a new contact, and it is going to be Mark. I hope you are a K, Mark, and not a C. I just realized I've forgotten. And we're going to say save, and you can see now Mark Jones's household is named Mark Jones household. It's just a handy way to make life easier for your users if you haven't already tried that. I will answer questions about this in the breakout. I'm going to keep cruising because there is quite a bit to cover, but yell if there's anybody who's really lost and confused at this point. Other things to know down here, please don't touch this section if possible. It is another one of those things that will change the structure of your NPSP. But I did want to point out there is a mailing list report for people who still do most of their communications via mail. You have the ability from a campaign record to have a button on the campaign that will open a report and pre-fill all the people in the campaign. But it doesn't just pre-fill all the people in the campaign. It dedupes household members first. So if Barbara, my partner's name is Jeff, if Barbara Christensen and Jeff Meyer are both in the campaign together, but you're sending a piece of mail, The thing you don't want to do is send us each our own piece of mail, of course. So if you have either used this out of the box report or specified your own, which just needs to be, and you can see it tells you right here, you just need to make a campaign with contacts report type, which is a out of the box report type. And the fields you want. Every time someone clicks that button from the campaign, which I'm sorry, I did not add it to my layout, it's based on that, it will pull a report that is automatically pre-filled with the campaign members and deduped so that only one line per report is from one household. So it's not going to give both a line for Barbara and a line for Jeff, even though we're both in the campaign. It'll just be Barbara. So it can be really handy if you do mailing lists at all. And again, you can make your own report. You can edit this report and save it. It won't get overwritten with updates and things. You can add your own fields so that if you use a specific set of fields for your mailing or for segmenting your mailing, it's going to help you with that. So that's a handy trick that some folks don't know about. And then addresses. So I actually don't know how UK interacts with some of the tools I'm going to talk about. So I may have some of you tell me if you use this tool. I'm sure Mark or Paul might know too, but let's start with the easy stuff. Everyone knows about NPSP household address management, right? If I am a contact, and you change the address on my contact record, it goes up to the household, changes the whole household, and sends that address back down to every contact in the household, provided they haven't checked a little box to say, don't do that to this one household member. Super handy tool. It also tracks changes to households in an object called the address object. Just have space what that's called. And you can, if we go up to Mark Jones' household, I'm not going to demo this because it's pretty standard, but I'll just show you that it exists. There is this address object that lives up on the account. And every time the address changes on either a contact or on the household itself, it's going to track that change and the date it changed. And it also allows you to do things like set vacation addresses, right? So if I live in the north of France, you know, in April and May, lucky me, I can set my address to the north of France in April and May, and NPSP will actually swap out my address on the dates I specify so that when I pull a list for April and May, I'm sending mail to the south of France, and hopefully me in a suitcase because I would like to go, or north of France. Sorry, I did say north, didn't I? So that's how addresses work out of the box in NPSP unless you turn them off. Great feature. The thing some folks don't know is you can do the same thing to organizational addresses. You can turn on those features for organizational addresses in such a way that address changes will be tracked in that address object. You will need to add the related list for address to the organizational layout. It doesn't exist there regularly. And then check this box. And what that means is when Hazeldine moves from London up to, where do you live now? Where are you now? Sorry, Emma. To Birmingham, you will see the change. Thank you. You will say somewhere in the middle. You will see the changes on the organizational record. So it'll keep track of changes over time. That's a really handy feature, especially if you do a lot of sort of B2B style work. And then some of you may have played, and this is where I might ask our consultants on the UK side, is there is address verification APIs that you can access via NPSP. It's built in. There are apps you can install that will also do this, but this is, they call it verification. It's technically, having worked in NACOA before, it's technically validation. You're validating that the address is real and mailable, not that the person lives there, but you can make sure that it's a real point on the map that the whatever postal service knows exists. It works in the US, I am sure. It works in Canada. I believe it even works in Mexico for Google and Smarty Streets. I don't know about Europe and the UK, which works there. So if anybody knows and wants to chime in, awesome. I can find out and have Emma let folks know. I just wanted to know that these are available. Not all of them are free. Google API is free. Cicero and Smarty Streets have like a minimum they'll give to nonprofits for free, which may work if you don't use it a lot, but then you start paying the more you use. Each has its disadvantages. Google API does something weird with the space break and apartment numbers. Like each one has a little bit of strangeness. In the Trailblazer community, Consumer Reports group is a chart that explains the difference between all three. That's a handy group to know. So that is, I'm going to keep cruising. That is addresses and the couple things to know about addresses. Leads, there's nothing to say here. You either create an opportunity or not. A lot of folks don't use leads. NPSP sort of hasn't used leads the way a business application might. Some folks do, but the expensive tools needed to mass convert leads makes it a little challenging. Maybe folks have built Flow to make that easier, but so that is the people side, the like single or groups of people who live together in households or work together in organizations. But one of the powers of constituent relationship management is that R, right? And CRM is relationships. And NPSP is really great at relationships in a lot of ways. It has some neat features in there. So if you haven't played with these yet and you do the kind of work that requires you to understand how people are related, this stuff is for you. This is useful if you are in the US, we call them major donor fundraisers or development managers, where you are sort of in charge of a portfolio of people, and knowing as much about those people as possible is a really good thing. Knowing, who they can invite. That's important stuff. I don't know if the UK if fundraising is quite the same. And it's important if you do program work, right? Understanding who knows other people in your programs, or volunteer management, because it's all about understanding that web of people that you can bring in for engagement. So relationships, there are affiliations, which is for folks who don't know, an affiliation is a relationship between an organization and an individual. And it's not just who works there, right? You know from working in NPSP that you have this thing called primary affiliation. Oh, sorry, this is a vanilla, it's not on the layout. Primary affiliation is usually a person's employer. But on top of that, you can set up affiliations for where people volunteer, where they're a steering committee member, where they're on the board, where they hang out on the weekends, if it's like a club that you track as an organization. So you can get into a lot of detail into how people are related to orgs, which is great if you're looking for corporate giving donations, or if you're trying to make sure who gets matching. It's good information to have. That's an affiliation. There's not a lot in settings to change. You turn it on or you turn it off. And that automatic affiliation is really just about that primary affiliation field. It's making that turn into an affiliation automatically. Then the next thing is a relationship, and a relationship is a relationship between two people. And this is where we're going to do a little bit of demo. I'm not just going to talk at you. Relationships have a couple ways of being managed. I would say if it were me and you didn't have a really good reason to, leave it at list setting, and I'll show you what runs the list setting in a second. There is another option called value inversion, which basically your relationship is you define the two sides of a relationship in a pick list. I've never had anybody need it, but if somebody knows, they can come into the group and into the breakout and give us an example. Awesome. I'm happy to hear it. And the reciprocal method requires a gender field. In the past, NPSP has either had you make your own, or recently it started including one in the package, but Salesforce just got caught up with modern times and has a gender identity field that it came out in this release, right? Like today or yesterday, depending on which instance you're on. And if you got caught up in that mess, that was yesterday. So there is now a gender identity field. You have to give it permission. I haven't added permission here, but it will be in this pick list when you add field level security so that everyone can see it. And that controls this. I'm on the relationship reciprocal settings, and this is the definition of all the relationships, right? They can be gendered. Male, female, neutral. It's assuming, it's not really assuming a spectrum so much as a dichotomy, but you can define these however you like. And the cool thing, and it's basically name, the male, the female, and a neutral. And you can kind of see what it is. Aunt, you get nephew, niece, and siblings, child. I always go in and change this to nibbling because that's the best word for a nephew, niece, but grandchild, grandfather, grandmother, grandparent. You can kind of see how the relationship works. The cool thing is you can make your own. So here is our scenario. I am a fundraiser at a bat rehabilitation nonprofit. Something to know about me, I'm very much into bats, the animal, not the baseball. And we have an annual event where we get our high donors to invite their friends and come and raise lots of money. And it makes us tons of money every year. And this year we are getting Pat Benatar to come sing for us. I'm also dating myself, Gen Xer. And it is the 2023 Pat Benatar concert. As a fundraiser, I want to know who my table captains are friends with and who they're inviting. I could, in fact, after the event, take my table captain list and go into Salesforce and by hand enter every single relationship by hand. Nobody wants to do that. Well, in NPSP, there is a feature, and this feature is going to help me out with that very task. And it is an automatic relationship creation. It takes a couple of steps. I've pre-done the steps so you don't have to watch me create fields. But the first step is to put in NPSP settings, table captain, event guest, event guest, event guest, right? I'm not going to gender my event guests. So my relationship is called table captain, and these are my event guests. These are the other person's role in that relationship. And then the next thing I have to do is on the relationship object itself is a field called type. And I need to add that table captain, which is the name of the relationship I just defined in the reciprocal settings, in this pick list, simply because when I'm in looking at a relationship, I will grab, sorry, I can't see my contacts. I will grab my contacts here. I'm going to grab Emma is my contact that I tested on. Sorry, my computer's being super slow today for some reason because I'm demoing. If you see, there is a type, and you can see I'm related to Emma as her event guest because the type of relation or the type of relationship is table captain. And I will show you how you trigger that. Table cap or automatic relationships can be fired in two places, a lookup on the contact and a lookup on campaign member. So a contact scenario might be my supervisor, might be on my contact record, right? Look up to my supervisor. You could make a relationship from that. The second that lookup is filled in with the supervisor's name, it's going to make a relationship between the supervisor and the employee, between the two automatically with that information in it. Done. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to manage it by hand. The place I'm doing it here is a campaign member. So when I go to, let's go back to Mark. Mark, thank you for being my demo here. When I go back to Mark and I add Mark, which sorry, vanilla layout, I have to do a little bit of extra clicking. I add Mark to the campaign. I'm going to add Mark to the 2023 Pat Benatar concert and click next. I've added this lookup to campaign member called table captain. All I'm asking is when I'm registering for this event, who was my table captain at the event? Emma invited both Mark and I to this event. She's our big donor. She's hoping we'll also give big because we came with her. I say save. It has created my campaign member. You're tracking my stuff about the event. You don't need to think about who my table captain was. You have it on reports if you need it. And you also don't need to go back and make relationships for us. So I'm going to go back to Mark. And we should see that between Mark and I is a relation, or between Mark and Emma, sorry, is a relationship. So Mark's relationship to Emma is Emma was Mark's table captain. If we go to Emma, Emma will also have a relationship. I mean, Emma, sorry, I remember where I am. Emma, Mark was Emma's event guest. That's how relationships work. It's a pretty handy feature. Lots of folks don't know it's there or use it very well. The way you set it up, I will show you, is here under relationship auto creation. And you create a new, I've already had it set up, of course. You say what object you're building on. You have contacts or campaign members. You say, this is the lookup field. This is the relationship type, which you remember is the name here in reciprocal settings. And then you can even limit it. I'm only doing this for social events and others. Like, let's say I use a lookup for multiple things. I can hone in on which campaign types to use. So that's a really handy feature. Folks really like that when they learn about it. I'm going to check chat real quick just to see if there's anything.
So the questions that we've had so far, Barbara, we've had on that specifically, will it only create one relationship of that type?
No, I get, you mean like if Emma invited 4 people, it will create 4
so it said, so if next year Mark was a guest again, would a new one be created?
Oh, you know, do I know? Let's try. I mean, it takes 2 clicks. Where am I going? I'm going to Kim. No, I'm going to make this and I'm going to clone it real quick. If Pat Benatar wants to do a, I don't want to clone with related. So I'm just going to make a campaign. Sorry. Oh, I have some samples. I'll use my samples. So I'll go back to Mark. And I'm going to, sorry for the multiple clicks. I just don't have extra actions and things added. This is just NPSP out of the box. Add to click. Instead of that, I'm going to do sample event campaign next. Oh, I should make sure it's the right type.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. And then doesn't matter. And I'm going to say, Emma, I think it should dedupe. Nope, nope, go back to Mark.
Loving the fact me and Mark are going to all these events.
I know, yeah, no, it dedupes. You only get one relationship of that type.
Amazing.
Which is a good thing.
Brilliant. Yeah. We've had a couple of comments about NPSP settings. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but both Debbie and Jose get governor limit warnings when they load it. And Dodie asked, and Dodie's here, by the way. Dodie's a rock star in the NPSP world. And Dodie said, so a question for later. So what is it doing when it takes NPSP settings to load? And why does it take so long? And why, therefore, does it hit governor limits? Do we know?
Lightning. Governor limits, I'll have to talk. I'm not 100% sure about governor limits. There could be a gazillion reasons for governor limits, but these are all components. These are components within components that are calling out up a structure and down a structure the way Lightning Web components do, or however these are built. And it's just, it's a lot to load. And I'm going to show you at the end where what's in the back end of these, what's running these in the back end, so you can actually edit if you're an expert and feel comfortable, you can edit some of your stuff in the back end without using this interface. I can do some researching and come back to you, Emma, about that governor limit. It's not something I've hit a lot, so I don't have the answer top of mind.
It's fine, but also like Jose said, he gets an Apex warning of too many SOQL queries, 60 out of 100.
Just loading the settings.
I think so.
That I would open a case for that
So
personally.
that's
'cause
what I
that-
was going to say.
yeah,
Like, if you're
yeah.
getting errors opening MPSP settings, open a case with Salesforce, because
Yeah.
equally the only way they are going to fix any of these problems is if everybody reports it.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
you know,
Yeah. And the only way they really track is not who's asking questions in the hub, in the Trailblazer community. It's sick cases.
Yeah. And Dodie said, it seems like it could be fixed. Just display the menu for starters and then load the back end stuff separately.
I know.
Dodie, we know.
I know.
let's get Dodie to go and tell them.
Yeah, and you know, they are making this last release has some increases to Lightning supposedly speeds, but part of it is just Lightning components are lightning fast, but there's a lot of components on this page, right? I look at all this stuff. So
absolutely. Well, Barbara, you've got about 2 more minutes.
Oh, geez.
I hate to cut you off because you've got so much, and maybe we can get Barbara back for another like session, because I think a lot of people have sent messages being like, oh my god, this is amazing.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you, you can name opportunities like you can households, you can map fields from opportunities to payments every time you make a payment mapping. Just so you know, customizable rollups, if you have not learned about it and it is not turned on in your org, do not be frightened. It is going to be your friend. So I'm going to show you 2 things to end. One is bulk data processes. Remember how we updated the household naming and I said it only moves moving forward? Well, there is a refresh. Oh, they renamed it. No, refresh household data. And this will refresh all the household names backwards. So if you change it midway, it'll catch up everybody else in your org. And a lot of these do that. You can run all your rollups at once. You can run all your allocations at once, create missing payments. You shouldn't be scared of most of these. They will warn you if you're going to have problems if you run it. The last thing to show you real quick is the health check. I helped write some of these reports at a sprint, those sprints in 2000 and I don't know, 1997 BC. I don't know. It was a long time ago. This will do health check, make sure your data is aligned as NPSP needs it. And also I wanted to point out the error log and the error notifications. I would change this to a person who actually wants to get all the error notifications, not send it to all sysadmins. You can get those errors sent to you from NPSP and they will be these sort of, errors like this that you will have to solve and understand a lot of times by posting to the hub. I was going to spend 2 seconds on TDTM. I won't, but I'm sorry. I did not go fast enough. It's a lot to cover and I'm happy to come back and do the rest because there is lots more to understand about NPSP.
Amazing. So if you want Barbara back for another round, please put it in the chat, because it would be great. Oh, Yvonne wants a whole session on TDTM. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Literally just be like, Barbara, come every time. That would be amazing. But I think the groups might get upset. Paul said, it wasn't a question of speed. I just rather you spend more time. And Dodie said, thanks for the shout out. Oh, and Mel says, yes, please. This is amazing. Okay, but you have got a bit more time to go and pick Barbara's brain, but that depends whether you want to book Barbara or James. I'm hoping James has had a coffee and he is still awake. For the shout out from James. Mark Jones on TDTM. So Barbara, it might be a TDTM session that we'd like.
Yeah, and admin side of TDTM won't take a whole session. So.
Brilliant. So Barbara can do a bit of both. That would be amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the breakout rooms. You should be able to select. So we've got a MoveData room and we've got an NPSP room. Barbara will, of course, be in the NPSP room and James will be in the MoveData room. So I'm going to open them now. And then please feel free to go to your appropriate room. Dodie's going. Bye, Dodie. Thanks for coming. So you should all be able to head off where you got to go.
I'm just reading through questions real quick before I go, just in case.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. I'm headed. Maybe. Yes.
Think I'm in the right room?
Oh, no, I don't think you've gone, James.
Oh.
Hold on. No, I think it says you've not joined. He's gone. Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause the recording.